Okay, today we're making 3 seriously good AI video generators fight for the top spot, because apparently that's what we're doing now. These tools are backed by some huge companies, and the level of realism they can pull off is kinda crazy. We're talking detailed scenes, smooth movement, realistic looking characters, and those moments where you have to look twice and go, wait, AI made this? But I don't want to judge them off one lucky generation because, let's be honest, even AI can have a good hair day. So we're giving every tool the exact same 3-stage test: easy, medium, and hard. That way, we can actually see which one performs consistently when things start getting more complicated. At the end, I'll pick my winner. But don't just blindly trust me on this one. I want to know which tool you think deserves the #1 spot. So keep your eye on the results and drop your pick in the comments. And before we jump in, one quick thing. These tools aren't completely free. You'll get some credits to test different prompts, and most of them offer credits on a daily basis, so you can still play around with the features and see what they're capable of without immediately paying for anything. If one of them ends up being your favorite, you can check out its paid options later. I've also put the useful links and resources in the description if you want to try them for yourself. Alright, enough talking. Let's see which one actually survives the test. Alright, starting with number 3, Google Flow. First, open up your browser, search for Google Flow, and make sure you're on the official website before you sign in. Once we're in, I want to start really simple and see how it handles a basic scene before we start throwing complicated stuff at it. For the easy test, I'm using this prompt: a golden retriever running along a sunny beach at sunset, gentle waves moving in the background, warm golden hour lighting, realistic fur, natural shadows, and a smooth cinematic camera follow. And okay, that actually looks really good. The fur detail is clean, the lighting feels believable, and the movement is pretty smooth. You know when an AI video looks fine for like 2 seconds, and then suddenly the dog grows an extra leg? Yeah, we're not getting that here. At least not in this generation. The whole shot feels pretty natural for such a straightforward prompt. But this was only the easy round, so we're definitely not handing Flo the trophy yet. Let's turn things up a bit. For the medium test, I'm using a young woman walking through a crowded Tokyo street at night while holding a clear umbrella, colorful neon signs reflecting across the wet pavement, pedestrians passing around her, taxis moving through the street, realistic facial details, natural clothing movement, handheld cinematic camera motion. And yeah, this is a pretty big jump from the first one. Now we've got a character, a busy environment, reflections, traffic, lighting, and a bunch of background movement happening at the same time. But Flo is keeping the whole scene together really nicely. The neon reflections look good, the people don't completely turn into background noodles, and the camera movement gives the shot a more natural feel. There's a lot more going on, but it still feels like one actual scene instead of a bunch of random AI elements thrown together. Now we're going straight into the hard test, and this is where I really want to see what happens. I'm giving it this prompt: a tiny astronaut exploring an abandoned underwater research station, slowly floating through a dark glass corridor filled with broken equipment and glowing control panels. Schools of fish swimming outside the windows, bubbles drifting toward the ceiling, realistic underwater distortion, moving particles in the water, subtle camera shake, dramatic blue lighting, slow cinematic tracking shot. Okay, yeah, this one is doing a lot. We've got an astronaut, underwater movement, glass reflections, floating objects, fish, bubbles, glowing screens, and changing light all packed into one scene. And somehow, the result still comes together really well. The underwater lighting looks convincing, the reflections add a lot to the shot, and the camera movement gives it that cinematic feel without going completely overboard. You can definitely find tiny imperfections if you pause the video and start inspecting every frame like a detective. But for a prompt this complicated, I'm honestly pretty impressed with how well Flo holds everything together. So yeah, Google Flow is definitely not making this competition easy. Number 3 came in swinging, and we've still got 2 more tools to put through the same test. Cool, now let's move over to tool number 2, Google Vids. And I'm keeping the same testing setup because changing the rules halfway through would kind of ruin the comparison. We're going easy, medium, and then hard. For the easy test, I'm using a fluffy corgi sitting inside a cozy coffee shop on a rainy morning, steam rising from a tiny cup on the table, warm sunlight through the window, realistic fur, soft shadows, subtle background movement, gentle cinematic camera push-in. action. And okay, this is a really nice start. The scene feels warm, the fur looks detailed, and that little steam effect is a nice touch. The camera movement is smooth too, which is exactly what I want to see from a simple prompt. Nothing crazy yet, but it's looking good. The corgi survived. We can move on. Now let's make things a little harder with the medium test. I'm using a street photographer riding an old bicycle through downtown Chicago during a warm summer evening. Pedestrians crossing a busy intersection, cars passing by, golden sunlight between tall buildings, storefront reflections, natural handheld camera movement, realistic shadows, detailed cinematic look. And wow, this one came out really clean too. There's a lot more happening now, but the generation still feels controlled. The lighting looks natural, the movement feels smooth, and the extra details don't make the scene messy. This is usually where you can tell if a tool can actually handle a more complicated prompt, and Vids is doing a pretty solid job. Now we're at the hard level, so let's make things a little ridiculous. For the final test, I'm using a massive glass greenhouse floating above a futuristic desert city at sunrise, hundreds of tiny drones flying around the structure, waterfalls flowing into clouds below, people walking across transparent glass bridges, birds flying through the garden, realistic reflections, atmospheric haze, subtle wind movement, dynamic cinematic camera orbit, highly detailed environment. And yeah, this one goes hard. There's a ton happening in one shot, but the generation still keeps everything pretty cohesive. The reflections, drones, waterfalls, people, and camera movement all work together without turning into visual chaos. Honestly, Google Vids did really well across all three levels. The easy one looked clean, the medium test held up nicely, and even the hard prompt gave us a really solid result. Now we've got one tool left, and at this point, the #1 spot is getting pretty interesting. All right, now we're at tool #1, Vids AI. After seeing what the first two tools can do, this is the one I'm really watching, because if you're taking the #1 spot, you better earn it. Same test again, easy, medium, and hard. For the easy prompt, I'm using a small orange kitten sitting on a wooden windowsill during a rainy afternoon, raindrops sliding down the glass, soft, natural light, realistic fur, gentle camera movement. And yeah, this came out really clean. The lighting feels natural, the fur has nice detail, and the movement is smooth. Nothing too wild yet, but that's exactly what we want from the easy round. Now let's step it up. For the medium test, a female skateboarder riding through a colorful Venice Beach boardwalk at golden hour. People walking behind her, palm trees moving in the wind, vendors and bicycles passing by, realistic shadows, natural handheld camera movement, cinematic detail. And okay, Vids AI is holding up really well. There's a lot more happening in this scene, but the background stays together, the lighting looks good, and the camera movement feels pretty natural. Now for the hard test, I'm using a huge ancient library hidden inside a mountain, thousands of floating books moving through the air, glowing staircases connecting multiple levels, a woman walking across a narrow stone bridge while sunlight breaks through cracks in the ceiling, dust particles in the air, detailed architecture, realistic shadows, slow cinematic camera movement, dramatic atmosphere. And wow, this one is strong. There's a lot going on, but the generation still feels cohesive. The books, lighting, architecture, character, and camera movement all work together really nicely. So yeah, across all three levels, Vids AI definitely showed up. And now we've tested all three, so let's talk about the winner. Google Flow gave us some really detailed scenes. Google Vids stayed consistent, and Vids AI handled the harder prompts really well. If I had to pick one overall winner from this test, I'd give it to Vids AI. But obviously, that doesn't mean it's automatically the best choice for everyone. It depends on what kind of videos you're making and which tool fits your workflow. So now I want to know your pick. Which one would you actually use? Drop it in the comments because I already know some of you are going to disagree with me. And if you want to test these tools yourself, I've put the relevant resources in the description. That's it for this one, and I'll see you in the next video.